Welcome, college. Okay, today and in the days that follow, you will learn definitions for the following terms: chord, triad, basic triad, root, third, and fifth. You will also be able to identify, spell, and construct major and minor triads. Let's get things started. Here's a question for you. Do you know the three basic elements of traditional music? Take a guess and put your answers in the three shapes below. Time's up. Let's see how you did. So one basic element of traditional music is melody. Another basic element of traditional music is harmony. And the last basic element of traditional music happens to be, that says rhythm. So melody, harmony, and rhythm are three basic elements of traditional music. Let's move on to some vocabulary terms. A chord. A chord is three or more tones sounding together. So how does a chord differ from an interval? Well, we already know that the interval is the distance or relationship between two notes. So chords are relationships between three or more notes. Now, a triad is a specific type of chord with three different tones. A triad is a chord consisting of two superimposed thirds. When you hear the word triad, think tri, such as triangle, that has three sides, or a tricycle, that has three wheels. In other words, a triad is a chord with three different tones. And a triad is a chord that consists of two superimposed thirds. If we look right here at this example, we can see that we have a superimposed third over a superimposed third. In other words, when we talk about superimposed, we're talking about one third being on top of another third. A triad may be constructed on any note of the basic scale. The following figure shows us that these triads are basic. Recall that the term basic means that there are no accidentals. In other words, all white notes on a piano keyboard. At the bottom of the screen, we're going to spell the basic triads based on the following basic notes. I have labeled C, D, E, F, G, A, B, which is the lowest note of each of these basic triads. Right now, let's spell the first one together. So we're dealing with this one. Our lowest note is C, and we go up a third, so our middle note will be an E. Up a third from the E would be a G. What I would like you to do now is spend a minute spelling the rest of these basic triads. We can definitely determine that each of these are triads because they deal with two superimposed thirds. Now, if I were to go over here towards the end of my staff line and do something like this, the question becomes, is that a triad? The answer is no. This is not a triad. And the reason is, if you recall from our vocabulary, that a triad consists of two superimposed thirds. Here we can clearly see that we have the interval of a second and the interval of a fourth. Therefore, that is not considered a triad. The actual term for that would be a chord. Now, college, what I'm going to do is play these 7 basic triads on the piano, and while I do that, I'd like you to answer the following 2 questions. Number 1, do these basic triads sound the same? And number 2, do all these triads have the same quality? And you'll recall from our study of intervals that quality means major, minor, diminished, augmented. Let's take a listen to these 7 basic triads that I'll play on the piano. So, do all these basic triads sound the same? No, they sound different. Do all these triads have the same quality? Hopefully your ear told you, no, they don't have the same quality. Just like intervals can change with the quality from major or minor or diminished or augmented, so too can triads. So college, there are 4 main types of triads. There are major triads, which we'll be discussing and talking about in today's video, but there's also minor triads, augmented triads, and diminished triads. These are some emotions that you may be experiencing at the moment. Ask yourself which one is you. Read the descriptions carefully for each of the triads while listening to some music that reminds us of the different qualities. Here is major. And then there's minor. And then we have the augmented. And we can't forget about our diminished triads. So let's talk about the major triad. In the major triad, the 3 tones correspond to the 1st, the 3rd, and the 5th scale degrees of the major scale. In other words, the major triad will sound like Do, Mi, and Sol, and is extremely happy. The lowest note of the triad, when arranged in thirds, is called the root of the triad. Think of the root as the bottom of the snowman. The uppermost tone of the triad, when arranged in thirds, is called the 5th of the triad. And the tone between the root and the 5th of a triad is called the 3rd of the triad. Take a look at the picture. we have the root, the third, and the fifth. This is called the C major triad because triads get their name from the root. Here's a question for you at the bottom. See if you can fill in the blanks. The major triad consists of what, and what degrees of the major scale? Hopefully you said that the major triad consists of the first, third, and fifth degrees of the major scale. How would we write the F major triad? Well, first let's pick a clef. How about treble? The root, if we want to build an F major triad, would need to be F. Let's go a third above F, where we find an A, which happens to be the third scale degree in the key of F. Let's go a fifth above the root, which happens to be a C, and C is in the key of F. I think we're ready to build our snowman triad. So let's start with the root, which happens to be F. We'll travel up to the third, which would be an A, which is in the key of F. This is just an interval, but let's make it a triad by adding one more note, a superimposed third. Up from the A is our C. C is in the key of F. Therefore, we know that this is the F major triad. And just to be on the safe side, let's double check. Our F major triad appears to look like the F major snowman triad, minus the broom and the carrot and the top hat. Very good. Now, let's observe the intervals that make up a major triad. Question: what is the interval from 1, which we now know is also the root, up to the third? That would be the F to the A. Hopefully, you responded with a major third. What is the interval from the third up to the fifth? That appears to be a minor third. What is the interval from the root up to the fifth? That appears to be a perfect fifth. It's important to note that major triads will always have these intervals between the notes. So here we have our basic triads again. What we need to do now is circle the triads that are only major. Remember, when sounding together, the first, third, and fifth degrees of the major scale produce a major triad. So let's do one of these together before we try doing some by ourselves. So first I'm going to recall that triads consist of a root, a third, and a fifth. And in order for the triad to be major, then I need a major third from the root to the third, and I need a minor third from the third to the fifth. And from the root to the fifth, it must be perfect. That's my little chart to refer to when doing this activity. So let's take a look at the first triad that I have. It appears to be a C triad because C is the root. And we can look and see that we have a C to an E. That is a major third. So far, it fits the criteria of a major triad. Let's examine the third to the fifth. We have an E to a G. That appears to be a minor third. When we have a major third and then a minor third superimposed on top of it, the result is a major triad. So I will be able to circle this first one because it is in fact major. I'd like you to spend a minute trying the rest of them and circle only the triads that are major. Good luck, college. Okay, college, so let's check over your work and see how you did. If I look at the second triad, which actually I can call the supertonic triad if I wanted to, is built off of basic note D. And the first thing I'm looking for is to make sure that I have a major third from root to third. If it's not a major third from the root to the third, the triad is not major. So I have a D to an F. Well, I know that that's a minor third, not a major third. So it cannot be the supertonic triad. Let's move on to the median triad. I have an E as the root, up to a G. G is not in the key of E. It's a minor third, not a major third. So I cannot circle that one as a major triad. Moving on to the subdominant triad. The root is F, up to an A. That is a major third. I'm not going to rule this out yet. What I'm going to see now, after I examine that that's a major third, is if from the third to the fifth, that's a minor third. If it's a minor third, that means the triad is major. A to C is a minor third. So my subdominant triad is indeed major. Moving on to the dominant triad. The root is G. G up to a B is a major third. B to a D is a minor third. This dominant triad is major. In the next one, I have an A up to a C. That's a minor third. Can't be major triad. In the next one, we call this the leading tone triad. I have a B up to a D. That is a minor third. So it cannot be a major triad. And finally, we end how we started with our tonic triad an octave higher. C to E is a major third. E to G is a minor third. I can circle that one. So, hopefully you did well identifying the major triads. Let's move on. Now we're going to try our hand at writing major triads, given the root note. There's a couple of ways we can do this. Number one, we can relate the three tones of the triad to the major scale of the root. Or we could observe the correct intervallic relationship between the triad tones. We can try both methods and check one method against the other. So let's examine our directions for this activity. We need to write major triads from the given root. Notice that the given note is the root and shall not be altered. Because the given note is the root, I do not want to supply any notes underneath that note, because we are going to be building the third and the fifth from that given root. Let's do the first one together. It looks like I want to construct a G major triad, because I know that this G is the root. From root to third, it must be a major third for a major triad. So G up to B would be a major third. From third to fifth, it must be a minor third. So from B to D is a minor third. We have just constructed a G major triad. You will need to try to construct major triads from the given roots for the other examples. Good luck! Okay, college, time is up. In a moment, I'm going to reveal the answers, but hopefully you double-checked by checking both methods. In other words, hopefully you looked at method 1, where you can relate the 3 tones of the triad to the major scale of the root. In other words, with the example, we had the key of G major, because G was the root. Ask yourself if B and D are in that key of G major. If it is, the triad is major. Then you can check the other method against that one. In other words, from the root to the third is a major third from G to B, and then a minor third from B to D. Therefore, the triad is major. So let's see how you did. Okay, college, so now we're going to write major triads given the third and the fifth. In other words, not the root. So for the first line, our directions are to write major triads given the third. The third is the note that's given that cannot be altered. I'm going to make a note by just writing a 3 there. We'll do the first example together. Recall that in a major triad, from the third up to the fifth must be a minor third interval. Also recall that from the root to the third must be a major third interval. So if we start out with E, which we know is our third, we can go up a minor third from the E, resulting in a G. If we start from E, which is our third, and we need to find the root, we have to go down a major third from E, making it a C. Double check that if C is the root, E is in the key of C, and G is in the key of C. Therefore, we just created a C major triad with the given third. Again, when you do this exercise, do not in any way alter the given note. In the next line, the directions are to write major triads given the fifth. Let's try the first example together. I'm going to label this F as a 5. Now, recall that a major triad consists of a perfect fifth, from the root to the fifth. So if F is my fifth, a perfect fifth below the F would be a B flat. I've just created a P5. So I have the root and I have the fifth. Now I need to put in the third. So from root to third, we have a major third. So B flat to D would be a major third. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it would be to take the F, which is the fifth, and recall that from the fifth to the third is a minor third, in which case we have an F to a D, and then from the third to the root is a major third, which would be D down to B flat. Cross-reference it with the method of asking yourself, is D and F both in the key of B flat? If the answer is yes, the triad is major. Again, as a reminder, please do not alter the given note in any way. Pay attention to the directions carefully. The first line deals with given thirds, where you'll have to supply one note above and one note below the given note. The second line consists of the given fifth, where you will have to supply two notes below the given note. Good luck, college. Okay, college, I'm about to reveal our answers, but before I do, please double check that you have not altered the given note in any way. Also, for the first line, please double check that you have written one note above and one note below the given note. And in the second line, please make sure you've written two notes below each given note. And let's check our results. Okay, college, here's a summary chart for our major triads, which we're going to want to memorize and study. So, for major triads, we have a major third interval from the root to the third. We have a minor third interval from the third up to the fifth. And we have, from the root all the way to the fifth, a perfect fifth. Let's head on over to some closure questions. What we need to do here is examine all the triads and circle the major ones. And any triads that are not major, please box. Then when you're done with that, please go ahead and answer some closure questions at the bottom. We want to list the 3 basic triads that are major, and we want note names, like A, B, C, in the order of root, third, and then fifth. We want some fill-in-the-blank questions answered. Triads are chords consisting of blank tones of 2 blank. And the 4 types of triads include, and you can supply them. And when you get done with that, you're going to complete the major triad chart below. So take some time to complete that now. Good luck, college. Okay, college, this concludes our video on major triads. Our next video will be on minor triads, where we have to identify some that we see and construct some given the root, third, and the fifth. A quick review of major triads. The three basic triads that are major are note names CEG, FAC, and GBD. Triads are chords consisting of three tones of two superimposed thirds. That is, one third on top of the other. The four types of triads include major, which is today's topic, minor, that's down the road, and then further on down the road, diminished and augmented triads. And here is the chart. Hopefully you did an okay job with this. From root to third, our major triad consists of a major interval. From third to fifth, our major triad consists of a minor third. From root to fifth, our major triad consists of a perfect fifth. Thanks for watching, college. Make it a great day.